Hi, this is Mr. Carvajal, and this is prep for our multi-genre reading summative exam. And if you were absent on Wednesday, we went over this in class, and you want to have this information when you take the test so you're able to do well. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a short story, A Pair of Silk Stockings by Kate Chopin. I'm not sure how to say her name. But it's a good story. It takes place a long time ago. Let's read a little bit about it, and then let's get to reading it. We're going to be focusing on theme. What is the message this story is telling us about life, about human nature? Read along with me, please. You are strong, confident, and successful. American writer Kate Chopin wrote the short story, A Pair of Silk Stockings, in April 1896. The story was published in 1897. Chopin is known for writing stories about women who lived in the late 19th century and their roles in society. This story takes place over a single day. A young mother wanders through town with some unexpected extra money in hand. Finding $15 then would be like finding $500 now. Just imagine what you would do if you found $500 to spend. Wouldn't that be nice? She spends the extra funds on herself rather than on her family as she originally planned. Okay, let's get started. Little Miss Summers one day found herself the unexpected possessor of $15. It seemed a very large amount of money, and the way in which it stuffed and bulged her worn old purse gave her a feeling of importance such as she had not enjoyed for years. The question of investment was one that occupied her greatly. For a day or two she walked about, apparently in a dreamy state, but really absorbed in speculation and calculation. She did not wish to act hastily, to do anything she might afterward regret. But it was during the still hours of the night, when she lay awake revolving plans in her mind, that she seemed to see her way clearly toward a proper and judicious use of the money. A dollar or two should be added to the price usually paid for Janie's shoes, which would ensure their lasting much longer than they usually did. She would buy so and so many yards of fabric for new shirts for the boys and Janie and Mag. She intended to make the old ones do by skillful patching. Mag should have another gown. She had seen some beautiful patterns, veritable bargains in the window shops, and still there would be left enough for new stockings, 2 pairs apiece. And what darning that would save for a while. She would get caps for the boys and sailors' hats for the girls. The vision of her children looking fresh and dainty and new for once in their lives excited her and made her restless and wakeful with anticipation. The neighbors sometimes talked of certain better days that little Miss Summers had known before she had even thought of being Mrs. Summers. Right? Once upon a time, Mrs. Summers was not a tired housewife. She herself did not think about the old days. She had no time, no second of time to devote to the past. The needs of the present absorbed her every thought. A vision of the future, like some dim, gaunt monster, sometimes appalled her. But luckily, tomorrow never comes. Mrs. Summers was one who knew the value of bargains, who could stand for hours making her way inch by inch toward the desired object that was selling below cost. She could elbow her way if need be. She had learned to clutch a piece of goods and hold it and stick to it with persistence and determination until her turn came to be served, no matter when it came. Right? People fighting over something in a bargain bin. That's kind of like what she's doing there. But that day she was a little faint and tired. She had eaten a light lunch. No, when she came to think of it, between getting the children fed and the place righted, and preparing herself for the shopping trip, she had actually forgotten to eat any lunch at all. She sat herself upon a revolving stool before a counter that was comparatively empty, trying to gather strength and courage to start her shopping. A limp feeling had come over her, and she rested her hand aimlessly upon the counter. She wore no gloves. By degrees, she grew aware that her hand had encountered something very soothing, very pleasant to touch. She looked down to see that her hand lay upon a pile of silk stockings. Imagine long hose, long stockings that women wear, like pantyhose, but they would come up to their thighs, sort of, and they would wear, garters, and they're very, very expensive back then. A sign nearby announced that they had been reduced in price from $2.50 to $1.98, and a young girl who stood behind the counter asked if she wished to examine their line of silk hosiery. She smiled, just as if she'd been asked to inspect a tiara of diamonds, with the ultimate view of purchasing it. But she went on, feeling the soft, sheeny, luxurious things with both hands now, holding them up to see them glisten and to feel them glide serpent like through her fingers. Two red blotches came suddenly into her pale cheeks. She looked up at the girl. Do you think there are any 8.5s among these? There were any number of 8.5. In fact, there were more of that size than any other. Here was a light blue pair. There was some lavender, some all black, and various shades of tan and gray. Mrs. Summers selected a black pair and looked at them very long and closely. She pretended to examine their texture, which the clerk assured her was excellent. $1.98, she mused aloud. Well, I'll take this pair. She handed the girl a $5 bill and waited for her change and for her parcel. What a very small parcel it was. It seemed lost in the depths of her shabby old purse. Mrs. Summers, after that, did not move in the direction of the bargain counter. She took the elevator, which carried her to an upper floor, into the region of the ladies' waiting rooms. Here, in a corner, she exchanged her cotton stockings for the new silk ones, which she had just bought. She was not reasoning with herself, right? She wasn't thinking. Nor was she trying to explain to her satisfaction the motives for her action. She was not thinking at all. She seemed for the time to be taking a rest from that hard and fatiguing function, and to have abandoned herself to some mechanical impulse that directed her actions and freed her of responsibility. How good it was to touch of the raw silk to her flesh. She felt like lying back in the cushioned chair and reveling for a while in the luxury of it. She did for a little while. Then she replaced her shoes, rolled the cotton stockings together, and thrust them into her bag. After doing this, she crossed straight over to the shoe department and took her seat to be fitted. She was fastidious. The clerk could not make her happy. He could not match her shoes with her stockings, and she was not too easily pleased. She held back her skirts and turned her feet one way and her head another way as she glanced down at the polished, pointed-tipped boots. Her foot and ankle looked very pretty. She could not understand that they belonged to her and were a part of herself. She wanted an excellent and stylish fit. She told the young fellow who served her, and she did not mind the difference of $1 or $2 more in a price so long as she got what she desired. All right, and we're going to go ahead and summarize here real quick. With $13 left, she forgets all about her plans to carefully spend all on her family. She feels young, free, and enjoys being waited on, as perhaps she did before she was married with children, and focuses entirely on herself. After buying the boots, first she goes to the glove counter, and an attendant helps her pick out a pair of fine gloves. Then goes to a fancy restaurant and has a light lunch and tips the waiter, feeling as she belongs with these other people who have money to spend. Finally, she buys a ticket to see a play and goes to the theater, enjoys the show, and being with other people who can afford such luxuries. Then the evening's over. The play was over. The music ceased. The crowd filed out. It was like a dream ended. People scattered in all directions. Mrs. Summers went to the corner and waited for a cable car. A man with keen eyes, who sat opposite to her, seemed to think she had a pretty face. He wondered what he saw in her expression. In truth, he saw nothing, unless he were wizard enough to detect a poignant wish, right? A sad wish, a powerful longing that the cable car would never stop anywhere, but go on and on with her forever, right? She wished she didn't have to go back to her family, to being poor, to never having enough. And that's how it ends. Not exactly a happy story, is it? Not at the ending, anyway. All right, so take a quick look here of housework in the late 19th century. In the 1890s, it was a chore. She talked about buying patterns, right? She wasn't going to buy the kids' clothes already made. No, 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 no. She would buy patterns and cut it out and sew it together and make their clothes because that was a lot cheaper, right? When she did laundry, she didn't put it in the washing machine and then put it in the dryer. No, they had to do it by hand. Cooking had to be done over wood burning or coal burning stoves. So it was a lot of work. And you're welcome to look over this to give you ideas to help you kind of understand. Laundry took hours and hours and work and work. And a lot of women had to go to a well and carry buckets of water over and over again to wash the clothes. So housework was very demanding. So Mrs. Summers, had reason to feel the way she felt about going back home and getting back to work. All right, so the first question. In the short story, A Pair of Silk Stockings, it addresses the balance between sacrificing for others and caring for oneself. So here's the question. Write a short essay analyzing how the historical, social, and economic context of the story, written 1896, impacts its message and theme, or theme and message. Okay, so to answer this question, of course, you have to figure out for yourself, well, what do you think is the theme? What is the message of this story? What is this story telling us about life and human nature? So come up with an idea. Once again, this is not a happy story. And figure out for yourself, what do you think the message is? And then once you've got that, you can tell us here. The theme of A Pair of Silk Stockings is, tell us what it is and explain. And then tell us, how do the historical context, the social context, anything like that, how do the historical context impact the theme? So tell us what the theme is and then explain how living in those times, right, affects the theme. You want to be sure you use the key words, right? Tell us what the theme is. And even though we're talking about effects, well, we still want to use those key words, right? It affects the historical, social, economic context of the theme by, and then explain that, give details. Be sure and take that time to explain and give details. It's supposed to be a paragraph, not a paragraph, but an essay response. So you want to write at least 2 full paragraphs to answer this question. Probably one about the theme and one about how the time period, right, affects that theme because of the way they used to live and the housework women used to do. All right, so let's do pre-writing for that. Answer this question. It'll be a rough draft, and then we will type and revise for the test in Schoology. Okay, and then for the second question, we're going to use Silk Stockings, plus we'll use this poem, The Albatross by Kate Bass. So first, before you read the poem, hey, use your phone, or if you're on your Chromebook, just ask Google and look up the figurative meaning of the word albatross. Right, and I don't mean just the bird. Oh, it's a large seabird. But what's the figurative meaning? How do people use it when they're talking about something? So look that up, and then look up the meaning of a person is an albatross. So go ahead and pause this poem and look those up, and then we'll come back in a second. All right, so you looked them up, and you realize that when you have an albatross, it's like you have this burden, this psychological burden that's like on your mind all the time. Oh, I'm really worried about something. And when a person is an albatross, it's a person who is a burden to you, a person that weighs on you and basically uses up your energy. So that's what is up with the title, Albatross, of the poem. It actually comes from the old book Rime of the Ancient Mariner, where this man kills an albatross. They're supposed to be good luck, but he kills it, and it changes their luck to bad. And the other crew members of the ship tie its dead body around his neck and make him wear it as a punishment. And albatrosses are big; they're good-sized birds. So this was quite a big deal. Anyway, let's read the poem The Albatross by Kate Bass, and let's find out who or what the burden is for this mother. When I know you were coming home, I put on this necklace, glass beads on a silken thread, a blue that used to match my eyes. I like to think I am remembering you. I like to think you don't forget. The necklace lies heavy on my skin. It clatters when I reach down to lift my screaming child. I swing her, roll her in my arms until she forgets. The beads glitter in the flicker of a TV set as I sit her on my lap and wish away the afternoon. I wait until I hear a gate latch lift, the turn of key and lock. I sit amongst toys and unwashed clothes. I sit and she fingers the beads until you speak, in a voice that no longer seems familiar, only strange. I turn as our child tugs at the string. I hear a snap and a sound like falling rain. All right, so let's think about the tone. Is this a happy poem? Is this a happy mom? I don't think so. And who is the albatross? Who is that big burden? Yeah, think about it for a second. Let's read it one more time. The Albatross by Kate Bass. When I know you are coming home, I put on this necklace, glass beads on a silken thread, a blue that used to match my eyes. I like to think I am remembering you. I like to think you don't forget. The necklace lies heavy on my skin. It clatters when I reach down to lift my screaming child. I swing her, roll her in my arms until she forgets. The beads glitter in the flicker of a TV set as I sit her on my lap and wish away the afternoon. I wait until I hear a gate latch lift, the turn of key and lock. I sit amongst toys and unwashed clothes. I sit and she fingers the beads until you speak, in a voice that no longer seems familiar, only strange. I turn as our child tugs at the string. I hear a snap and a sound like falling rain. And I love that final line, right? That could mean a lot of things. She could literally be talking of the snap of her necklace, right? But what else might sound like falling rain? What does that connect to? Well, maybe crying, maybe tears, right? Okay, so let's look at our second question. Reread the last stanza of the poem Albatross, right? This here. And the last paragraph of the short story, A Pair of Silk Stockings. So go back to the end of the short story, right? And it says using what? Textual evidence from both selections. So you got to find a quote from each. Write a short essay that compares and contrasts how the characters and the settings of each contribute to their themes concerning motherhood. Okay, so be thinking about the themes of motherhood. What is motherhood like in A Pair of Silk Stockings? What is motherhood like in the Albatross? And talk about how they're the same and how they're different. And then how the settings and the characters contribute to their themes of motherhood. So the same as the other one, you kind of want to write about what the themes are. What are the themes of motherhood? And then how do the setting and the characters contribute? So you can start that one with both of them, right? The Albatross themes of motherhood is this, Pair of Silk Stocking, it's that. And then you can use the keywords again and tell us how the settings and characters contribute to the themes by, and you've got it done. All right, so once you're done with these, we should be able to take the test. Just let me know when you're ready, and I will have a paper copy version for you. All right, hope you're doing well. If you have any questions, let me know. And thanks for sitting through this and paying attention. You're going to do better on the test because you took the time to watch this video.